So what happens then when the baby comes? Because they take the baby immediately?
Yeah, I didn't even have a private room yet. I was still in the examination room, and they came in and told us that they were removing the baby. They had orders from their superiors to remove the baby. And
would that be Bruce McNeil?
That is the individual in charge of our case, yes.
This was just how long ago again? This was
February the 10th.
February. Okay, that's
just 5 hours after she gave birth. It takes an hour and a half just to drive from Hope to Surrey.
Can there be anything more traumatic? My heart goes out for you.
No.
I mean, if they're going to do this, give you a week and keep you under watch or
do
something.
This, they said they didn't want to do it, Terry. First they tell them that they
this
don't want to do it,
bizarre.
and then bango.
I mean, they certainly. How could they not know that there's just about nothing that you can do that's worse for a mother and a child than to take the child away, even if that mother is a mass murderer. Keep her under watch.
I think they get to keep their kids in jail.
Keep them under close watch for a day or two, and let the baby and the mother have that time.
Exactly.
My goodness, this is amazing. There must have been something that happened from the time of the first apprehension to this time here last month. Certainly, you guys must have really messed up somewhere along the line. You must have done something to have them take this horrible act.
They are basing it all on the one incident.
That one incident.
With Bethany.
Still.
And they also...
Had they thought that all that time you hadn't... even if they thought you had done that at that time.
Yeah, worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, okay, you did it. And worst case scenario, you admit you did it. One of you did it. I mean, isn't there some sort of, okay, you know what? We've been watching these guys for 3 years. They're pretty good people. I mean, they haven't been throwing stones at windows, and they haven't been robbing banks, and they haven't been going and molesting kids. And they're good people. They obviously love their kids. They want to get their kids back. They're not part of some coven or something, and maybe they've learned their lesson. And okay, well, let's see how they do with this child. There was none of that either.
No, and even worse than that, they, instead of allowing our baby to remain in the hospital, because
the baby was premature as well.
Yes, he was premature, and
he was more small than premature, though. He was 36 weeks, but he was only 3 pounds
and 15 ounces. And the ministry decided to take him out of the hospital into foster care when he was barely 4 pounds, and the judge's decision on our 3 other children was still going to be arriving that very next week.
They put him in the car seat to take him out of the hospital, and he didn't fit the car seat. They had to stuff towels underneath the straps in order to make up the room.
Okay. But what about what we know from...
just a second here, because Zabeth just mentioned something. Even though the judge's decision on the earlier apprehensions was going to come down just a week following this birth, a decision we know which ended up not being favorable, but even though that was going to be just a week, and there was a chance, at least 50-50, one would think, that the judge would say, hey, clean slate, go. And then you would have got your children back, you have to keep that child. The worst possible scenario maybe would be that the judge says no. But any sort of scenario says that let's let them keep the baby for a week, and in hospital, let's keep them in hospital where they can't do any harm to the baby until this ruling comes up. And they didn't even do that.
It's better for the baby.
Well, more as that was going to say, they are duty bound to do what is in the best interest of a child. Right. Isn't it in the best interest of a child to be given mother's colostrum? I mean, we know how essential that is to the health of the new baby, especially a premature baby. Mother's milk. Yeah. Nurturing, all those things. Every act they did was contrary to the best interest of that child. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to promise you one thing. Regardless of what the minister does, I am going to swear an affidavit and put it on your child's files in case, worst case scenario here, so that those kids can sue the bloody ass off the ministry when they get to be a legal age to do it. We have other cases. We're going to be doing this now with the Burnett children. The next case I'm going to talk about that Bruce McNeil was involved with. There has to be lawsuits. Now, whether or not we can get judges to apply the law, because we have another problem in this province, in this country, that judges are unaccountable. And when I read the decision in this case, and like so many of the other thousands of cases I've been involved with, you know, judges hide behind the ministry here. They're so fearful of making a wrong decision and having it come back to bite them that their reputation takes precedence over the interest of your children once again. We have a big problem on a whole bunch of fronts here. We're not going to get into the industry aspect of this, but I also want to know, because they're, you know, regardless of the child not fitting properly into the car seat and towels, I somehow don't think that's in the manufacturer's operation of a car seat.
No.
But is it true what I heard, that the baby was involved in a car accident?
Yes, we just found that out now. I have yet to see the report. It was faxed to me. But yeah, I was told on the way back home from a visitation that he was involved in a car accident.
That was on Monday, we were told.
And we were told that he was taken to a clinic to be assessed to see how he was. And from the examination, we were told he was okay. But we're concerned.
You've been there before, though,
We've been there
haven't
for
you?
3 weeks being told that they were okay.
Just
So
lucky the accident wasn't in your car, and then, boy, they'd be charging with something else again.
Yeah.
So obviously the great hope was that this is going to get before a judge, and the judge will weigh all the facts, and the judge will make the decision. And this did take place. A guy named Judge Crabtree, and this made there was some news on it just in the province on March 4th, just a couple of days ago. Couple heartbroken, judge rejects children's return after 3 years. Surrey couple fighting for custody of their 4 young children are heartbroken by a court ruling saying the kids must remain in foster care for another 6 months. According to the story, Judge Crabtree rejected Zabeth's explanation for Bethany's injuries. Judge pointed to inconsistencies, saying he was unable to place any weight on it. I don't know exactly what that meant, but
Well,
what sort of inconsistencies were in your testimony? I mean,
well, from what I remember from reading the judgment there, I believe he referenced inconsistencies when I referred to our son running, and in another testimony I called it a stumbly run, I believe was the wording. Also,
so you didn't use the right adjective 2 times in a row, is that it?
Well, it was 3 years. I testified 3 years previous at a presentation hearing, and then at the trial, 3 years later.
Stumbling.
But the other item was watching.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was where my husband was. If I was out of the room like I said I was, I wouldn't have known where he was. Well, to clarify that, my husband told me where he was then, so I had included that in my testimony without mentioning that. That's what Paul had told me. So there was inconsistencies in there along those regards.
Very minor. And could be explained in a second.
Well, one of the things that the ministry's lawyer tried to catch her on was Bayne 12 inches or 13 inches away before he fell, and things like this. And he tried everything under the sun to try and trip her up. Like how far away was a hospital?
12 inches or 13 inches?
Yeah. How far away was a hospital from our home? Was it 5 miles, 2 miles, 1 mile?
That was the wrong
She's supposed to
question for
know
me.
that.
Yeah.
No, I'm in the back seat trying to give my little one CPR. I wasn't paying as much attention to the road.
And after 3 years, your memory is so muddled and blurred.
So that was the kind of evidence that this Judge Crabtree put weight on?
Mm-hmm. But he refused to put any weight on our 10 expert witnesses.
But he also refused the ministry's shaken baby syndrome verdict. He left it as unexplained injuries instead.
Yeah.
Okay, now...
So then just to be safe, another 6 months.
Well, yeah, during those 6 months, the judge omitted in his ruling the social worker's testimony, the caregiver's testimony, the director's testimony. He didn't reference that at all in his ruling. But
what about the fraudulent?
No, nothing.
Oh,
nothing
so
about that.
No lack of credibility there. You use 2 different adjectives, but a social worker who commits fraud
and lies and is deceitful and manipulative. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's just a minor detail. Is that how it works?
The judge knew that we didn't have a working relationship at the time with the ministry and vice versa, and I believe he mentioned that in the ruling. But now, during the next bit, Paul and I will be trying to work with and meet the satisfaction of the courts and to prove that we are good parents. We're going to do what we can to prove that.
How has this affected the reports here about the great financial costs that it's taken, the toll that it's taken?
That's right here.
Yeah.
Obviously, what exactly has happened in your lives of the last 3 years, financially and personally, as you fought the fight here?
Well, we lost our home, and through the lawyer's costs and at the time a lot of medical costs to hire medical experts, we lost our home through that. We had to auction off my grand piano. I'm a piano teacher, and we auctioned that off.
You lost 2 jobs. I lost two jobs.
Lost them because...
the ministry scheduled meetings and visits in the daytime, in the middle of the day. So I couldn't take any more time off than I was, and eventually I was suspended from one. And then the other one, someone phoned in and said, oh, they're dangerous around children. So I ended up being dismissed from that one as well. So
your reputation now, you've been
apparently our
defamed.
picture, we were told by other people that our picture was posted in a daycare in Hope. If these people come around the daycare, phone the police. We never actually seen it, but this is what we were told.
All on the one case,
Yes.
for which there was very marginal, it's conjecture, and you got medical experts.
It's all hearsay. Yeah.
Do you guys ever, I'm just wondering was there some prejudice that was formed against you for some reason at the outset?
We don't know.
I don't know.
It certainly seems that way, but we don't know.
I know that shaken baby syndrome is a major diagnosis
that's right.
And what we're trying to do right now is we started a medical conference called Evidence-Based Medicine and Social Investigation, and we're bringing in August 4th, 5th, and 6th a variety of medical experts and lawyers that are going to address these issues. But I think that was a prejudice, that specific diagnosis of abuse.
I'm just trying to, just following up on that though. Once it became unexplained or your experts disproved that, why wasn't all of this? I mean, is this what the ministry can do? Just go leapfrog from theory to theory to theory?
Seems that way.
There was another case that was similar to ours here in BC. And that one went through an appeal, and we actually used that case in one of our closing arguments. And once the judge knew that the ministry had that information of a different diagnosis from other medical experts, that decision showed that they should have dropped it and returned the children. That would have been the right thing to do. But in our case, they didn't do that.
Now, I want to talk a little bit from a taxpayer point of view, and also, again, from the best interest of the children, because you have tried to work with the ministry early on in this. That you brought the children together at one point to reside with your parents, did you not?
The ministry placed our 2 boys with my parents, and then they allowed us to move in with them, and they stayed there in that environment, and it was working fine until we went to media, and then they removed them on June 12th.
So you're being punished then. And I happened to get an article, and I think that it's very, very important, and I want, Minister Mary Polak to take note, and I want Judge Crabtree to take note too. But this was just published in the National Post. The deck is stacked. And it's talking about the courts and publicity, those kinds of things. And it refers to an English philosopher, Jeremy Bentham, once famously noted, where there is no publicity, there is no justice. Publicity is the very soul of justice. So we here at Roadkill are going to make available to you a lot of publicity.